Hey everyone's Classic DM, and today we got a special treat for you. It's a long video, but it's broken up into chapters for you because we're going to do multiple takes to get this one accomplished. We're going to do a DM's tour of the Tomb of Horrors. This is a classic module from the old days, one of those Gary Gygax death traps, and it has so many elements to it that just have stood the test of time for so many years. Well, as usual, we're going to take a look at it room by room, go through all the encounters, talk about how to run some of these things, have discussion points. Great chance for you to share some of your experiences, like, oh, when we ran it, this is what happened here, this is what happened here, or when you're the DM, like, what'd you change to make things cooler? Because that kind of information helps people watching the video. Like, you might share a cool idea that you have that no one else has as well, and when they're running it, they might, oh, you know what, this one guy in the video comment section, he said he did it this way. I think I might want to try to do the same kind of thing. Let's go ahead and jump in. We're going to assume that you already have gotten your players to the location. They've already been, climbing up the side of this cliff, this grassy knoll. They've already been figuring out, like, how do I get into this place? That's no problem. There is one basic rule, though, about this whole thing you need to keep in mind, that the level of the characters need to be like level 13, 14, 15, have magic items. If you go back and look at the pre-generated characters that are near the back of the whole module, which I'm not going to pull up on the screen here, but I'm just going to tell you real quickly. I mean, they're suggesting like 6 or 7 characters, like a level 14 mage, level 14 cleric, level 12 paladin, 13 ranger, a lot of multi-class, like a half-elf that's level 5 cleric, level 7 ranger, level 6 mage, just a triple class, so 1862 strength. The magic items they suggest are okay. They're not amazing, but there are some good stuff in here, like +3 plate, +3 shield, +3 mace. That's a great AC. Flaming sword, fire resistance, magic bows. These are characters that have been around the block, right? Now, if you have someone rolling up characters on their own, please be sure that they are really, really, really ready for this. And that requires both the character sheets, the gear, the magic items, their resourcefulness. It also requires the player to be smart. This is not your walk in the park. And when you get inside this place, one of the big rules is that any kind of, astral or ethereal travel is going to attract a type 1 to type 4 demon, a check made each round. Now, remember back in original AD&D, when they talk about a round, they're talking about every minute. So doing anything tricky like that is going to get you in serious trouble. Let's go ahead and jump into one of the very first encounter areas. And the good thing with this high resolution map, we're going to just do everything in order. We can zoom in really, really quickly here. And you may already understand what's going to happen, but just follow along. We'll talk about these things, and hopefully you have a lot of fun. And if you don't get a chance to play this anymore, sometimes it's kind of fun to vicariously relive your childhood. But Area 1, the false entrance tunnel. The corridors of plain stone, roughly worked, and it's dark and full of cobwebs. The roof 20 feet up overhead is obscured by these hanging strands, so casual observation will not reveal that it's composed of badly fitting stones. Daylight, because you've kind of dug your way into here, there's no door or anything, will be sufficient to reveal there's a pair of oaken doors at the end of the passageway. If the roof is prodded with any force, or if the doors are opened, that's key. That one line is absolutely key. The roof of the tunnel will collapse and inflict 5 to 50, which is 5d10, hit points of damage upon each character inside of this area, with no saving throw. The doors open outward by great iron ring pulls. The cobwebs must be burned away to be able to inspect the tunnel ceiling. So, they have illustrations. I pulled all the illustrations out, and I put them into a booklet so we can see it a little bit better without having to fold the pages and all that kind of business, right? So you should be able to see, this is like the picture that they give you. And this is one of the very first dungeons where they did this kind of stuff. And there's no Jeff D stuff in here, but there's a lot of the other great artists are in here. The thing that's really interesting about this is that it right off the bat kind of sets the tone for the nastiness that's going to be going on in this place with this Area 1. And you got to make sure that those players that you have, like, they're wired for the old school way of searching for secret doors, right? And if you look at all the Dungeon Master's Guide around page 98 or so, they kind of loosely say searching for secret doors is a 1 in 6 chance. 2 in 6 chance for an elf. Every turn, which is 10 minutes. That part's up to you. If you've compressed your game's time down to 6-second melee rounds, and that's going to be, you can modify that as you see fit. Searching for traps, find, remove traps, that can work too. There's a lot of elements that have to be handled by a thief or a monk or someone that can do these kinds of abilities. If you have a group of players that have played it before, you're also going to battle with the fact that someone knows what happens in the room, and they'll either sit back and not say anything, which means they're not really contributing. Their character would contribute. Most people aren't good at pretending they don't know. So it's always best to maybe get someone who's forgotten everything, remembers that one of the ceilings falls down. Okay, I don't want to go on too much about that kind of detail, but this is the very first room of the entire adventure. We have to zoom over here now to Area 2, which is the far right-hand side. This one's much more tricky. Let's pull out a little bit so you can see the whole room. This is another one of these false entrance tunnels. This is another plain stone passageway, but the ceiling's only 10 feet high. Daylight will enable adventurers to dimly see what appears to be two separate doors at the end of the corridor. The floor paving at 50-foot distance within the passage will shift slightly when characters tread upon its surface. I'm going to read the whole thing. I'm going to go back and then talk about it, right? They will hear a rumbling from behind or beside if someone's about 30 feet in, and at this instant begin counting slowly to 10. About 1.5 seconds per count. And if you reach 10 before any player has reacted, as noted below, a huge stone block 10 feet thick has slid shut, and you can see here in the diagram it's kind of coming in from the right and going to the left. This huge stone block is 10 feet thick, has slid shut, and completely sealed off the passageway. The block cannot be moved or forced back. Well, there are some things you could do there. Trapped characters can only escape by the following means: the Disintegrate spell, Phase Door spell, Stone to Flesh, assuming a sufficient quantity of the block can be changed, Transmute Rock to Mud, and Wish. Players giving notice that their character is running out will be able to cover, they call it 1 foot. Now remember, 1 foot is 10 feet. 1 foot of distance, 1 inch of movement rate for their character count. This is where it gets kind of confusing. Thus, a base 6-inch movement rate, right? That's not really inches. The measurement system in AD&D is different than it is in later years when we start using 1 square equals 5 feet, right? They can cover 60 feet of distance in the space of a single count. Mentally note the character's action, and when the 10 counts finish, figure out which character is. The block begins slow movement so that at the count of 1, only a slight a bit protrudes out. At count 2, it's 2 feet plus a bit into the corridor. At 3, it's at 4. At 4, it's at 6. At 5, it's 9, etc., etc., etc. Once it slams shut, anything between it and the wall will get crushed. Now, this is an exception. An iron bar will stop the block. Now, it doesn't say how. If it's sliding, you'd have to put the bar like up against the wall and things like that. Most people don't carry an iron bar anymore. A bar elsewhere will bend and allow the block to come shut, but 1 count will be gained as the bar bends. The bar kind of would bend and then collapse. The doors at the end of the passage are false doors. Let's go take a look at the illustration for that. That's going to be the second picture here. So this is really rough cross-hatching type of little sketch, right? So running this is tricky. The counting to 10 is you do inside your head, right? And it's like that Indiana Jones thing where the thing is sliding down and Indiana reaches in and grabs his hat at the last minute. When you have the stone block sliding over, the thing that triggers this is kind of tricky, right? It doesn't really mark on the map. It doesn't really say that, oh, when someone steps right here, this thing starts sliding. You know, some DMs might go, well, if you pull on the doors, but it doesn't say that, right? Here's what it says. The 4 paving at 50 feet distance. Now, each one of these squares is 5 feet, I do believe. Is that right? I believe these are 5 feet. Not 10 foot. The original dungeon is 10 foot. Let's double check. Let's cross check that. This is 20 feet. Right. This grid is a 5-foot grid because it was made for a later version of D&D. All right, excuse me. So 2 of these is 10 feet. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So basically what the DM's trying to say, when you get this dark brown coloration happening here, that's when you start hearing this block slide. Now, unless someone turns around, you know, and starts looking back, that's how you have to run. This is where facing direction will make a difference. If you're using miniatures, which way are they looking? It's usually unlikely that someone stands way by the doorway like a coward. You guys go first and I'll wait here. So this encounter, this kind of trap doesn't usually trick anyone, but you're going to have to play it fairly. Some situations I've seen this where the block starts to slide back and people just move out of the way and it's no big deal because they can move 25 feet in 6-second segment. But that's the second area. Let's keep moving along. We don't spend too much time on these kind of details because there's so much more to go through. This is a complex hallway, and this is the actual entrance to the real place. Even a bit of daylight entering through a crawl space or a torch reveal this is an unusual tunnel. Remember, you would have had to dig through the rock and side of the mountain to get in here. So it's not like there's going to be a big, large opening to go running out of. You might make a hole just big enough to kind of get in and slide down, kind of like in the Hidden Shrine of Tomoashan, right? So bright, brilliant colors to be seen everywhere. The stones and pigments undimmed by the passage of decades. Show illustration 3 now. So this is a classic picture. Everyone remembers this one. This is the actual hallway that has all the mosaics on the ground and all the Anubis pictures and things like that. Let's keep reading. The floor of the color is colorful mosaic of stone with a distinct winding path of red tiles about 2 feet wide. And we're going to go back to the map so you can enjoy it with the map. The line snaking its way down south the corridor. This is this little red mosaic thing going down the corridor. And yes, as you probably guessed it, these are trapdoors, right? And they're concealed. Some of them are different than others, so don't assume that they're all the same trapdoor, even though the module describes that all trapdoors do A, B, and C, right? And it does say that here, and we'll go over that in just a second. No stonework can be seen on the walls or the ceiling, which is only 20 feet above. For some sort of cement or plaster has been smoothed over all the surfaces and then illustrated. The scenes painted show fields with kine grazing, a copse with several wolves in the background, slaves, human, orc, elven, strange human, animal mixtures like pig human and ape human and dog human, going about various tasks. Certain of the frescoes show rooms of some building, a library filled with many books and scrolls, a torture chamber, a wizard's workroom. See Area 4 for more details on this one. There are chairs, window boxes, bales, doors, chests, birds, bats, spiders, all manner of things shown on the walls. This is a time frame where the dungeons don't have the blocked out text for you to just read to a player. So as a DM, you got to get your highlighter in here and print a copy of this and kind of highlight this stuff because it's impossible to highlight these things in a PDF. So when players start moving down this hallway, you need to kind of know about the traps. Let's cover that next. All pits, except where noted to the contrary, throughout the whole tomb, they're only 10 feet deep. They're concealed by a counterweighted trap door, which opens as soon as a person steps on it. Now, it doesn't really describe which side of the hinge is on and these kinds of things. Well, the way I always like to do it is if the trapdoor is placed in a hallway and you're going to be walking over it, that the hinges are to your right and to your left, so the trap opens in the middle. Even though there's an X shape, it's not an X iris door like you might have in a Traveler Starship, right? Now, these are not so tricky that no one can ever find them. All you got to do is use a pole. A 4 and 6 on a D6, a 1 to 4, will reveal that there's something going on here. It just slows everyone's movement down. So there's nothing wrong with that. If you step upon the pit lid, you're going to have a 100% chance of falling, modified downward by 1 percentage point of dexterity to 12. So therefore, if someone had 8 dexterity, right, the percentage chance would drop down by, 8? Okay, and 2% for each point above 12. So if someone had 14 dexterity, they get 2% for those 2, which is 4, plus the previous 12, et cetera, such as dexterity of 13 is a 14% chance not to fall, dexterity of 14 is a 16% chance, and 18 dexterity is 24% chance of not going in. So as the trapdoor starts to move, that person who's got a lot of dexterity, which is really like your agility, good chance to roll and get out of the way. When you play this, make sure the players say which way they're moving, and be sure they tell you how they're moving. Like, I dive to the left. Okay, great. If they're facing down in this situation, if they dive to the left, they're going to end up, landing over here. If they just run forward, they're going to run to the next pit. These are the kinds of details you got to pay attention to because you want the players imagining them really being there and imagine them thinking, wow, I'm really going to need to tell the DM exactly what I do. Don't have players that get into the comfort zone of saying, oh, I just step back. That's okay. But make sure that they want you to tell, well, how do you step back? Do you just kind of move back 1 foot at a time? Do you put your hand on the wall? How do you move exactly? You want them to be careful and methodical with their movements, so when they make a big mistake, you also want to give them a little bit of tip that something's about to happen potentially, so they get a chance to creatively tell you how they avoid death and destruction. Okay? Anyway, let's talk about the spikes of this thing. You have to, at the bottom of the pit, there's 5 iron spikes coated with poison. This is really nasty. Most people I know don't use this verbatim, but roll d6 to determine how many spikes wound the victim. A 1, 2, and 3 means the number of spikes wounded the victim, and 4 through 6 means none have wounded the character. Each spike causes 1 to 6 hit points of damage, which is nothing unless you're a monk or a magic user, and the victim must make a saving throw versus poison for each spike that wounds them. Any failure means the victim is killed by the poison. Any failure means the victim is killed by the poison. There's poison in all kinds of places throughout the game. The drow have poison, assassins use poison. Something about this magical poison that's been here for all this time kills the player. I don't think that's fair. I honestly don't think that's fair. It's falling in the pit and having an RNG 2 spikes hit you and having to roll 2 saving throws. You're high level though. Remember, if you look at your DM screen, the saving throws versus the saving throws are not versus poison. Excuse me, mind blank for a moment there. Is not that hard to do, but someone could roll a crappy roll like a 1 or something. So the whole adventure is over in the first trapdoor because Bilbo fell in the trap, right? So we also have some other descriptions happening in this area with this long hallway. So you've got these pits that are going everywhere. Area 4 is different, right? And Area A is different. So this is let's talk about this Area A right here. There's this little box sticking out on the wall. This area is where the torture chamber is painted, and the wall hiding this passage shows a painting on the iron door, which evidently confines some sort of hard creature. Its taloned and scale hands grasp the bars of its small window, which can be loosened to torment prisoners. If the plaster and the cloth behind it is broken away, a normal inward revealing door will be revealed. So let's just take a look at this. There's a graphic for that, if I'm not mistaken. They're talking about this area here. You see this barred door with the hands grabbing the door, and here's a little thing right here. So they're talking about this area next. Let's go back to the actual map while I read you the rest of the details. So that reveals this door. So if you look at this picture, let me make sure I got this clear for people to make sure it's not confusing. If you're standing at the entrance, you're looking down the hallway, this is a protruding box that you'll just have discussion about in a moment. This is the doorway. If you mess with the bars, you can if you break through the plaster, you'll see there's a normal doors behind it. So someone's like, hey, what's up with this? It looks like a painted door. Make sure your players do things like, I try to push, is it really a door? I look for any edges. Are there exposed hinges? Is the plaster fresco in bas relief? How is it done? Because if they find out there's a door, they can open it up and then go into this area A, right? If the pattern on the floor has been carefully observed and studied from the entrance to this point, flagged as B. This is tricky because even if you go back to the old school map, let's pull this up for you too. I got it in here as well. If you go back to the old school map, there's nothing on here that says Area B. So you're like, where are they talking about Area B? That's not clear. So it'd be interesting to see, even when the person made this map, which is done by Jon Pintar, and his maps are amazing, go get all of them. There's nothing that says where Area B is. So Section B, if the pattern of the floor has been carefully observed and studied from the entrance to this point, the individual with such perseverance, means there's no checks or anything, will be rewarded by suddenly understanding that a message is contained and barely noticeable in the runes of the mosaic floor. It will say the following. And then we've got this page up for you. Let's pull that up. Here it is right here. Asirak congratulates you on your powers of observation, so make of this whatever you wish, for you will be mine in the end, no matter what. And he also uses hyphens, right? Go back to the tormentor or through the arch, and the second great hall you'll discover. Shun green if you can, but night's good color is for those of great valor. If shades of red stand for blood, the wise will not need sacrifice, aught but a loop of magical metal. You're well along your march. 2 pits along the way will be found to lead to a fortuitous fall, so check the wall. These keys and those are most important of all, and beware of trembling hands and what will maul. If you find the false, you find the true, and into the columned hall you'll come. And there the throne that's key and keyed, the iron men of visage grim, will do more than meets the viewer's eye. You've left and found my tomb, and now your soul will die. Great. They're great. You just love it. Not that I'm reading it great, but it's really cool. But it's talking about the whole dungeon. It's not even telling you very much about what's happening in the next 5 minutes. So this is something that players, a lot of times, they will just look at this. It's like the White Plume Mountain thing. They'll just sit there and look at it and look at it and look at it. Now, what's not clear here, if the pattern of the floor has been carefully observed and studied from the entrance to this point, which isn't marked on the map anywhere. So that means you got to figure out some kind of way to do that. And everyone knows that once people get down here, everyone knows what this is, right? Everyone probably remembers this, right? They've seen it before. They've forgotten that there's any kind of secret. This secret passageway goes into the side wall of this pit here. What I always recommend people to do is if they ditz around over here, and we're going to read that next entry in just a second, if anyone else in the party is not doing anything while someone's ditzing around trying to disarm this trap, that's a good time for someone in this area to discover this pit that doesn't seem like it's jammed against a wall, right? It seems to be away from the red pattern, the penitent man. I mean, so you have the situation where like on the red is dangerous, off the red, off the red, on the red, on the red. So the clues in the poem don't really tell you too much about that. But what I suggest is if the party starts dinking around here, anyone who's up here messing about with these traps, have them start to see these letters. You could even be a cheat and kind of say, you know, when you're standing in this part of the hallway, especially with a torch or something, you notice that it looks like there's some kind of wet blood writing in words written on the ground. Like something, just make it up. Make it feel like, whoa, I've discovered something. That's really cool for a player to have that neat feeling. Let's move on to the next area, which is thing 4, this fresco that happens on this wall here. And we're going to pull this up to you for next. This is the one with the 2 jackals. Let's go to our... Sorry, I was on the wrong page. This is the one over here on the right. Here we go. All right, so the most outstanding feature of this area is actually outstanding. 2 jackal-headed human figures, this is the illustration, are painted so as to appear to be holding a real bronze chest. If this box is examined closely, the viewer will note that it's hinged on the bottom, which means that, like, along here, along the bottom, it's got hinges. And when you see this picture, I think everyone has figured this out before. It's hard to, like, be surprised by it anymore. Even in the picture, it looks like there'd be hinges underneath here. It looks like a lunchbox. If you think of this as a lunchbox glued to the wall, it's really clear that the top part would be the part that folds down towards you, right? On the bottom, so it's allowed the lid to swing down if a catch on the top is pressed. The catch has an easily detectable poison needle trap. Let's go back to the actual photo. Sorry, I got the wrong picture up for you. A detectable poison needle trap, and this can be avoided easily by pressing the stud with a dagger pommel, etc. So you can, like, you know, you don't have to use your finger. So that little button that's right here, it's like if you press the button, it's like tink, you get your finger pricked. It's described in such a nonchalant way that you almost want to give it away. Like, there's a button here, but it looks like it has like a little trap or something on it. It's kind of weird. However, when the box opens, it will appear to be absolutely empty, but if a character actually feels inside the chest, he or she will find a rod which stands vertically from the bottom. This lever moves easily, and if it is pulled with any force, it will open the shaded trapdoor which covers a 30 feet deep pit. Now let's quickly go back to the old school map. That's this one right here. The shaded pit is the one directly underneath your feet, okay? Now in the cool modern day map, it doesn't really mark one as the shaded pit. It's the one that's just directly in front of the box. This is actually a door. The box is actually over here. So I said earlier, I made a mistake. This is supposed to be the door. The box isn't shown on the map as a protrusion or anything like that. Make sure I'm not screwing it up by saying the wrong stuff, right? Let's go back to this view for you. We'll go back to here and here. There we go. All right. Now you can see things. All right, let me get caught up to where I was. Sorry about that. So this is where this pit opens up. It's a deeper pit. It's 30 feet deep. Spiked and poisoned as all the traps are, which inflicts 3d6, 3d18 hit points of damage. Exclusive of the spike damage. This trapdoor is 3 foot thick and cannot be detected by sounding, which means like popping it with a rod or something. Note this trapdoor is 3 foot thick, can be detected by sounding or any magic which detects secret doors or even traps. True seeing will reveal a fine rectangle where the stone plug is, right? But it will not show what it does. Once triggered, that pit remains open thereafter. That means that the other pits you see, like, they are hinged and they have a counterweight, so when someone steps on it, it's too much weight, you fall in, it goes chink, and it flips back up, right? So that's a nasty little trick. You've got this thing in front of you, you're trying to figure it out, it's got a rod in there, and basically, if you mess with the rod, the lever moves easily, and if pulled, you know, it's not twisting or anything like that. It doesn't reward you with anything. It's just a nasty trap. This would be a good situation for someone who's playing a thief to find and remove traps, to discover there's a lever, and you can tell the lever pulls back, and as you're pulling and testing the strength of it, the stone floor that you're standing on, you can feel something shifting and moving a little bit. Dwarven characters can detect sloping passages and things like that. If I had a dwarven character playing this adventure, and if he said anything at all in this area about looking and examining the stonework or anything like that, I would tip him off to this. I would give him, because there's no real check to make for those kind of guys. If they're thinking and talking out loud, this is the beauty of AD&D. You don't have skills and crap like that. If he's saying, well, I want to check this passage, is it sloping? And they're being inventive, and they're a dwarf or even a gnome, reward them by giving away this trap that's on the ground long before someone goes up and starts messing with the lever handle. Remember, just because stuff is written from first, second, third, fourth sentence doesn't mean the players are going to discover it in that order. They might discover these trap doors here long before someone messes with the little lid, right? So let's move on and go to the next one, which is down the end of the hallway. This is number 5. This is the Misty Portal, if I remember correctly. Let's pull up the picture for that one as I read it to you. There's a let's go down the Arch of Mist, right? One section of the path shown on the floor leads directly into this archway. Now let's just remind you about that. So the red path goes this way into here, and it splits here. Notice how this one splits tucked under it, but this one goes on top of it. That's a subtle clue. Let's go back to the picture for you. All right, here you go. All right. If any character stands within 1 foot, which means 10 feet, of the entranceway upon the path, the base stones will glow yellow on the left, orange on the right, and the keystone, which is 7 feet high, will glow blue. Let's look at the map again and make sure we understand that correctly. Remember, this is 5-foot squares. If anyone stands within 10 feet, which is basically going to be, this is a 10 feet area here, right? Anyone stands here at the crossroads, here, 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 close enough in proximity. We almost think of this as a 10-foot radius extending out here as a circle. Like if someone says, well, I stand here, but I don't want to stand on any of the red stuff, they wouldn't be inside the circle, right? You have to think of it as a radius check, right? If you're using Foundry VTT, you can probably do a measurement check with a tool. So that's going to make the stones illuminate. It doesn't make anything crazy happen. It just makes them light up for you. Let's pull that up for you. There is a misty veil across the archway, and nothing will cause the vapors to clear, nor will any sort of magic allow sight into the area until the glowing stones are pressed in a proper sequence of yellow, blue, orange. If this sequence is pressed, the vapors disappear and the path appears to go eastward. If the archway is entered when it is clouded, those characters doing so will be instantly teleported to Area 7. Let me just show you where that is real quick. So if you haven't pressed the sequence and you step through it, you're going to get teleported to this really nasty kind of trapped room here, which has an escape route. There is a way you get out of it, but it's actually kind of hard to deal with. Right? Let's keep going. If they pass through after pressing the glowing stones in the proper sequence, those stepping through on the path will be teleported to Area 11. Those who pass through off the path will be sent back to 3. Let's clarify this. So there's 3 types of situations can happen. Press the buttons in the right order. If you walk through this on the path, that means you got to have players tell you where they're walking, because this path pane on the floor is a pretty big element. You're going to get teleported all the way over to here, to this sealed room with this little cavity that comes into here to this orb hall, which we'll talk about later. If you're off the path, you get teleported up to 3, which is up here. There's no other function of this whatsoever. There's nothing behind here at all. I ran this one time, and just on a whim, I decided to put something behind here that would reward players so they wouldn't see stuff like this again in the game, because in the dungeon there's another one of these, and they go, well, I'm not dealing with it, because it just teleports people to their death or whatever. So you don't have to do that if you do it rules as written. All this does is teleport people around, right? And that makes them think about, like, where do I stand? So, you know, if you have a miniature on a 5x5 grid and they're taking up this whole grid here, are they on the path or are they off the path? You're going to have to either ask them or tell them, listen, with this hallway, I need to know whether you're stepping on a standard mosaic or on one of the red mosaic tiles. So you can say, point to the tile you want to be on and then tell me, are you standing on the red or are you not? And the fact that you ask them that will tip them off that that's important, and they won't know. Last detail I want to mention here. How does anyone know what the color pattern should be? Remember, let's look back at the picture. Let's look at the picture. Here we go. So we have one in the lower left, down here, right? Lower right, and above. Sparkles, mist, really cool, right? So this one on the left, yellow. This one on the right, orange. This one above, blue. Yellow, orange, blue. The right pattern is yellow, blue, orange, which is clockwise, right? But what's the rhyme or reason for it, right? Is someone going to go to the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost? I mean, you just have no idea. There's no clue anywhere that tells you what pattern it should be. What people sometimes do is they do a random RNG check, but it's not Simon Says. It's not like blue, blue, red, yellow, like some of the damn Elder Scrolls Online puzzles. So this is a kind of interesting thing, but I always felt like it was so nice to reward people with something behind it, so they wouldn't just go, this is one of those crap traps, don't deal with it. You know, I had friends call them crap traps. So let's go back to the map again. All right, here we go. So the next area is this Forsaken Prison. Remember being teleported to that if you went through it when you were on the grid? I believe that's how the situation for it was. That's down here. All right, let's talk about this area. This miserable cubicle appears to have absolutely no means of egress, which means an exit's an architectural word, and even a magical means of detection will not indicate any. So if you had a gem of true seeing, it won't show you any way to get out of here. There are 3 iron levers, and if you look really closely here on the map, let's zoom in kind of close, you can see there's 3 iron levers here, right? They're about a foot long on the south wall of the chamber. These levers will move horizontally or vertically, singly or in combination. All right, so imagine you look at the wall, right? They go up and down, and they go left and right. So they're like joysticks. They don't go diagonally. That's a lot of combinations. You have 1, 2, 3 that can go up. Maybe you have the first one up, the second one down, the third one up. A statistics major, please put a comment below and tell us what the possibilities of this is. With each lever having 1, 2, 3, 4 positions and 3 levers. What is it? 3 to the 4th power to the 4th. Someone please, who's a smart person that does statistics, tell us what the chances are of someone guessing what the right pattern would be. Okay, let's continue on. Moving them straight up opens a small trapdoor in the center of the ceiling 10 feet above. Remember, these are 5-foot squares, so a 10-foot ceiling will be this whole area up above. Pushing them simultaneously down opens the entire floor to a 100-foot deep pit with no exit. Damage from the fall is 10 to 100 points of damage. That's 10d10. Now the average of that could be 50, right? And the floor will automatically return to its closed position in 1 turn. That means 10 minutes, thus sealing any inside the pit there until another victim triggers the drop away again. The sealing route is a crawl space some 3-foot square. At the place it turns east, there's a plug in the ceiling that can be detected only with magical vision means, or if the character has enough sense to test for secret doors by rapping. Secret door detection will not avail here except as noted. So the regular I search for secret doors doesn't work. They have to kind of tap, tap, tap. So this goes up to the ceiling. It goes to this passageway, okay, and this is a little like a trap door that will go up into the space above. It turns to the east, which turns this way, right? That's, excuse me, where are we? There we go. Eventually, the small tunnel leads to a magical one-way door, which opens in the pit side as shown, and players go back to square one. So it is possible for someone to come out into this room. If I'm not reading it wrong, let's read it really, really carefully one more time, right? So the ceiling route is a crawl space, 3-foot square. So you've gone up here, and you're crawling through this space here, right? Are you the same height as this area here? Are there any stairs that connect this area to this area? We don't know if this is sloping or not. It could be. So it's hard to know. Why is there a secret door right here? Let's go take a look at the actual original map and take a look there. This is this pit here. This is pit here. It doesn't show. So we don't know for sure if that's like a manhole cover that goes up or something in the ceiling that goes down. But here's what it says. At the place it turns east, there's a plug in the ceiling. Okay, so which can be detected only with magical vision enough to test for secret door. So if it's in the ceiling, it's going to open up into this room that has the 3 chests in it. That's a big bonus. Then you could go through this trap door, this passageway here, crawl space, and it comes in the side of this pit. Not the same level as the floor out here. And the pit would be closed, so it would be completely black, and you would see the spikes maybe like 4 or 5 feet below you. So you could actually stand in the bottom of this pit here, between the spikes, and look up and try to get the trap door to open. You probably couldn't do it unless you could find a way to pull it down. So that's a really nasty, tricky little area. Really cool. Let's take a quick break for 5 minutes. We're going to pause it, and I'll edit this back together so I can catch my breath and think about what's coming up next, which is Area 8.